So, when you think of the most iconic vampire in the world, a vampire that generations before you have heard of an infinite amount of times and generations after you will continue to whisper his name on their lips, who is the guy that comes to mind? That's right, the simp servant Renfield. I'm just too funny. When the movie was announced some time ago, the first thing that was said about it was that Nic Cage was going to be playing Dracula.
You're in an untenable situation.
Now, I think it's safe to say that people were a bit, let's say, skeptical about the idea of the movie. Was it going to be serious, funny? What are they going to do with a character as iconic and infamous as Renfield? So obviously I saw the movie. I see everything down here. Every single thing. But for right now, let's just talk about the movie with no spoilers first, then spoilers, and maybe get a little spooky. The movie Renfield follows the familiar of Dracula. What's a familiar, you might ask? Depends on what you mean. A familiar is a monster that has a lot of diverse depictions. It can be a spirit, an alter ego, a doppelganger, a personal demon, a low-ranking demon that takes the shape of some small animal. They can take the shape of a grotesque little shit that does nothing but wipe your ass, or a pretty decent-looking Brit who has been in the spotlight for the past several years.
Never look better, man.
Hank? Don't mock me.
Sorry, friend. In that movie, you looked like shit. In this movie, he is a familiar, and in this movie, a familiar is a former human, now undead servant who shares a magical connection to their master. In this case, it's the master of all masters.
My name is Dracula.
If you've seen the movie and you're a little surprised or confused that I said Renfield was undead, I'm not surprised that you're surprised. It's literally said once in the film and nothing is ever said about it or explained further about it again. The point is, Renfield does Dracula's bidding, which is basically moving him from place to place after Dracula goes uber vamp on some people, causes too much attention, gets fucked up, and then when they get to a new place, Renfield feeds him until he is at full power and then rinse and repeat. The good news is that when Dracula goes uber vamp, we get to see it, and it is awesome. The best part about the movie is the over-the-top violence. Sometimes it's cool, and sometimes it's pretty funny, but back to the story. So in the movie, Renfield goes to a support group to get some help with his toxic relationship with Dracula and also a network for some new victims for his master. At their new location, there is some heavy gang activity and the cops get involved and the two stories mingle together. And that's pretty much the whole movie, without any spoilers. So, how was it? Starting from strongest or the Dracula of the film to the weakest or the, I don't know, some kind of pussy good guy vamp that never wants to hurt humans.
You're beautiful.
Beautiful. This is the skin of a killer, Bill.
The violence, like I said, is a lot of fun. Sometimes it's serious and sometimes it's funny, and I'm a big fan of both. Next, Nic Cage plays a pretty good Dracula. They give him a lot of cool powers, looks, dialogue, mannerisms. I wouldn't say he's my favorite Dracula, but he's pretty good. Nick Hoult does Renfield really well. The man is a good actor and he plays his role really well, but he really isn't a super funny guy in the film, but he is part of some of the jokes because he makes mistakes and he's a bit of a goof or fuck up, really. The humor is, I'd say, above average. Not the funniest film, but definitely makes up for it on the entertainment factor of the whole thing. John Renfield is in the film.
Hope you brought a change of clothes, because your eyes are about to piss tears.
His moments are pretty 50-50. Sometimes he's funny, and the rest of the time I could do without him. The worst of this movie is definitely Aquafina. In my script, I spelled it like a normal fucking person, and not the weird gibberish she went with. Look at the screen here. Aquafina. This is unnecessary, just like her in this film. Not to be too dickish.
Go on.
But she can't act. She really isn't funny either.
You're like the guy that gets the villain's Postmates.
This is not funny. I doubt she wrote this line, but the delivery is bad too. It's actually a decent reflection of her contribution to the whole film. If you want to laugh at a scene with Aquafina in it, you're gonna need two ferns.
Aquafina. Aquafina.
Aquafina.
Like the water?
Well, it's spelled differently.
Was Shasta taken?
Yeah.
Overall, it's a fun movie and worth a watch. Currently on Rotten Tomatoes, critics give it a 59% and the audiences give it an 82. I don't think it's that high or that low. I'd place this movie in the 70s. A nice addition to the horror comedy genre. If you want any other recommendations for horror dark comedies, here are some of my favorites. Alrighty then, time for some spoilers.
Showtime!
The movie starts at a group therapy session and Renfield is narrating what he is doing there. We get flashbacks of his and Dracula's first encounter, and it's a black and white movie, and we also get clips of Dracula just ripping people to pieces.
This just got awesome.
The movie starts off really well, letting you know that you, your friends, your family, me, my legions of monsters and my alternate forms from the soulless parts of the world and the incomprehensible cosmos that makes everyone beg the question of what am I exactly, are here for a good time. So Renfield tells us that he spends his time finding victims for Dracula. When Dracula gets to full power, he massacres people and brings so much attention to himself that he eventually gets overwhelmed and near dead. Even though I think that's fucking bullshit, Renfield revives him, packs it all up, and then they move to a new place and rinse and repeat. He's actually here at the meeting to hear people's stories about their piece of shit significant others as targets to bring to Dracula. Renfield tracks some of the piece of shit significant others down and he gets into a fight with some of them, and a hitman shows up and Renfield eats some bugs which give him super strength and rips them to pieces and brings them to Dracula. He did get injured during the fight. He feels the pain and it doesn't heal, so there are limits to the powers that the bugs give him. When he goes back to Dracula, he spits up the blood from the bad guys because they are bad people. Innocent people taste better and give him his strength faster. Hey, kinda reminds me of someone.
Hiya, Georgie.
Never mind. Dracula gets a little pissed at Renfield and he hurts him a little bit, but then pours his blood over his wound because Drac's blood can heal. Anyways, we go to a routine traffic stop and meet Aquafina's cop character, Rebecca Quincy, codename Dasani. John Ralphio, or Teddy Lobo, has a bag of coke in his car, but he tries to speed past the traffic stop. And Voss shoots out his tires, and while she is chasing him down, he is throwing literal bags of drugs at her and her partner, but she's able to bring him down. And even though there is a fuck ton of evidence to put him away, his lawyer just walks him right out of there. Okay, I know it's possible that there are a lot of dirty cops in this movie, but how could none of what just happened stick? So later on, Renfield is at a bar looking for Drac's next meal, and Mountain Valley Spring is also there, and oh, would you look at that? John Ralphio and his gang are there too. He has the drop on Evian, but she stands up to him regardless, and it really touches Renfield's heart. So he eats some bugs and fucks some shit up. It's a very fun and very bloody bar fight, but I do have to nitpick a little. John Ralphio gets stabbed in the neck with a fork by Renfield, a guy who is so strong that he cuts people's limbs off with a serving platter, but John Ralphio just walks that shit off and it's never brought up again. There's barely even a band-aid over the wound. Anyways, Renfield goes back to the meeting to finally open up about his toxic relationship, and this is probably the funniest part in the whole movie. There's this chick Carol who is telling her story when he barges in and interrupts her, and the guy in charge says, "Oh yeah, sure, go on right ahead, sit down and tell us your story." And Carol's all like, "Oh, okay, I guess I was done. Yeah, fuck Carol. I hate her too." He comes to the realization that if he doesn't feed Drac, then Drac can't do anything, so he stops. We get a montage of Renfield living a normal life and he buys an apartment, decorates it, lets all of his little bugs go, and lives a normal life. Or at least normal for him. By the way, what does he eat? How did he afford that apartment? Earlier, they mentioned that him and Drac live in an abandoned hotel because it's low profile, and also they don't have any more money because of all of the moving. So yeah, it doesn't really add up. Anyways, Jean-Ralphio is able to get a lead on Renfield and goes to the hospital with a bunch of goons, and they run into Drac, who slaughters all of them, but makes a deal with Jean-Ralphio to be part of the gang. Drac is able to track down Renfield and let himself into his apartment because Renfield has a doormat that says welcome on it. Fucking idiot. Him and Drac talk it out, and Renfield tries to stop Dracula with one of his self-help books, but Dracula notices a sticker on the self-help book that tells him the location of the group. So they both get there, and Dracula flings Renfield across the room, and before he can touch the ground, Drac massacres an entire group of like 15 people.
Oh no!
So Drac bounces and Renfield gets all of the blame put on him when Arrowhead and her partner show up. She calls it in, but the cops and mob show up because every cop in the department is crooked. Polo Spring and Renfield are able to escape, and he takes her back to his place to recoup. He breaks down everything, and the whole time Mountain Valley Spring is pointing her gun at him like she's his little sister and she just wants to play with Big Bro. It looks super unconvincing is my point. As they try to leave, they get attacked by the cops and the mob, and it's a great bloody time. Icelandic Glacial gets a call from Jean-Ralphio, and they have her sister.
Who?
I guess our hands are tied, and now they load up and we have a showdown at the mob mansion. Drac has made a couple more familiars, and it begs the question, when is he gonna make other vampires? Can he? Also, how do you make vampires in this universe or familiars? It's never explained. It might be a bit of a nitpick, but it would be fun to know a little bit more. Moving on, Renfield takes out all of the familiars cause, you know, obviously, and kicks Jean-Ralphio so hard that his organs burst out of his mouth and his ass. The fight with Dracula requires a lot of luck, some clever thinking, and a little bit of unbelievability, and he gets taken out. Makes sense, he is quite the powerhouse in this film. They have some fun brutalizing him because mostly Renfield doesn't know how to kill him or if he even can be killed, which is odd because you'd think putting him in the sun would do the trick. He has had minor exposure to the sun before and it turned him into a skeleton. You'd think that would be a good indicator that that would be the way to kill him, just keep him in the sun. So they chop him up, blend him up, turn him into a frozen cement ice cubes and throw him down the drain. Okay, that was fun. And since they grinded Dracula up, they do have a lot of access to his blood. They use that to save Smartwater's sister, heal Renfield's wounds, also bring everyone in the therapy circle back from the dead?
What? Oh, come on!
Really? So like nothing really happened in this film? Everything is fine? Well, I guess not for those people, because the main guy says that he saw some things on the other side. Things he can't unsee. I'm thinking Hellraiser?
Save the breath. Full screen.
Let me know if you all think it was something else. And that's the whole movie. Renfield was a fun ride, and if you have a lot of fun with over-the-top violence and blood, then you'll have a lot of fun with this film. Even though Fiji Water is a terrible actress and not all of the jokes land super well, it's not enough to bring down the whole film and to it like an unwatchable level. This movie was almost exactly what I thought it was going to be once I saw the trailer. Normally I avoid trailers, but I knew exactly what I was going to get when I watched it, and yeah, it delivered. I knew this wasn't going to be a movie that would get any sequels. I mean, I hope it doesn't. I don't need anything more from it if it did turn into like a franchise. I knew it wasn't going to be anything more than a popcorn movie for horror fans that like to laugh a lot while there's an insane amount of blood on the screen. Nothing more from me, but I do have an old friend that wants to keep you around for other reasons. Stay spooky.